is time for us to move over to the Legal Contact podcast for our week 4 college, our week 3, kind of week 4 college football picks. You had that first week, there were a few teams on there. We didn't do picks, so week 3 of our picks. We were excited.
Yeah, that was week 0.
That was week 0.
Yeah, that didn't
We're
count.
excited to bring in a new segment, like we mentioned at the beginning of the show here, where we're going to have a guest pickers, hopefully coming in every week. This week, I would like to welcome in my good friend Eric Rose from the state of Michigan. Eric, thanks for joining the Legal Contact podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Kyle's excited to talk football, right? Love football.
Super excited to have you. Eric's, like I said, I've known Eric my entire life, actually, ever since I was a wee little lad. I've known Eric. He was a couple of years older than me. He was real close age with my sister, so looked up to Eric as I was going into high school and continued a friendship with him, his brother, his whole family. Eric has one downfall, and it's kind of a big one. He does wear that school from Ann Arbor's colors. So now I'll give Eric this.
So we can talk UConn, Michigan football today.
That's right. You could.
But I would love to qualify this. I would say a sensible Michigan fan. Where
you are. That's why I chose to bring you on and not your brother.
Where I do love. My wife is a Michigan State fan, and so I root for them, even against Ohio State. And that's not always I have to do that. You have to root against Ohio State. Anyways, that's just my thought there, Kyle. I'm a sensible Michigan fan. I'd love to be considered that the rest of this podcast if possible.
Yes. Eric is one of my favorite Michigan fans because he's sensible, he's not arrogant, and he is objective across the board.
That's true. When we have a psychopath as a coach, what can you do? Right,
exactly. See, he's objective. There we go. Let me ask you this, Eric, not to get too much on Michigan here. Right. Is J.J. McCarthy a Heisman candidate this year? It sounds like
he has improved in so many ways. I've talked to some sources who have actually been and seen him at practice. He's improved with his legs. Here's the big thing. You cannot win a Heisman with turnover sickness that he had the last couple of years. So his command of the offense, his way that he has leadership, I think if they can go through their simple, impy-dimpy, easy schedule, the easiest of FBS, and hit the hard ones like Ohio State and again Michigan State with the pedigree and name Michigan, it could happen. But he can't turn the ball over. He's got to command the offense like he should, and he's got to win the big games.
That Hawaii game already put him on the ballot, so I think he's there. But that's just me having a little bit of fun there. Some of my Michigan friends. So let's move into it. Let's move into our picks again. Thanks for joining us, Eric. Our first pick here, then we're going to go with the BYU Cougars traveling and playing at the Oregon Ducks. So let's go ahead. Thomas, I'm going to have it start off with you this week. What are your quick thoughts on this game, and who do you got?
Well, Oregon's a favorite here, which is a little interesting, obviously, but it is a home game. They actually looked, you can't say much against EW, but they looked decent. They put up 70 points last week, so a little good rebound after Georgia. I will actually pick Oregon here at home. I wasn't too impressed. I watched the whole BYU-Baylor game. Obviously, I had Baylor in that game. But if their wide receivers are still out, which their top 2 wide receivers were out against Baylor, and they obviously missed them, they have some depth. But if they're out again, I'll pick Oregon here.
All right, taking Oregon. Christian.
Yeah, as Thomas said, that line is very interesting. Seeing that does kind of scare me. It's up to 3.5 right now. I do think BYU's, obviously outside of the receivers being out, I do think the big kind of issue they can have is in the trenches, which is Baylor's strength. And despite that, BYU ultimately did come out on top. With that being the case, I don't think Oregon is as strong as last year in the trenches. So as long as the receivers are back, I know we can't have a contingency on these picks. But as long as those receivers are back, which they were supposed to originally last week, I think I'm going to ride with BYU.
That's a fair thing to say. You can't make a contingency on it, but you can have more hope if that's the case. So yes. That's fair. Mike, let's go with you on this one.
I'm going BYU.
Those Stormer Mormons.
That's right. Stormin' Mormons.
That's
a
right.
big Mormon
All right.
fan.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna take Oregon in this one. I don't with the wide receiver questions coming into mind. I'm not. And after coming off a really hard game against Baylor, start off that season to be able to take on Oregon team who, yes, did get demolished by Georgia. I think there's still enough depth there, and I believe in where the program is headed that I think Oregon does come out on top. So give me Eric, what are your thoughts here on Oregon and BYU?
Yeah, I mean, Oregon's a tough place to play. You don't know what kind of shirts they're going to bring out that are going to scare somebody. But they'll be quacking at you no matter as they play. But anyways, BYU has a really good quarterback in Jaron Hall. He's been really significant, but he gets rattled easily. And I think Mario Cristobal, who is there at Oregon, did a good job of setting forth a really solid defense. So I got to say Oregon there at home and quack away.
All right, quack, quack. Let's move on to number 22, Penn State, traveling to unranked Auburn. So this is one of the two kind of test games for the Big Ten East, and to actually see some real competition and to see, since the first week in Notre Dame proved not to be much, as we see from last week, but outside of Ohio State playing Notre Dame, the Big Ten East really hasn't played any teams. So this is definitely a game kind of to watch, to maybe set some expectations to see what we get. Thomas, thoughts on Penn State at Auburn?
This is another close one when you look at the matchup here as far as the spread. Penn State obviously on the road, but as a 3-point favorite. Again, I don't like always betting against Sean Clifford in season 10 million of him at Penn State. However, so far, Auburn has been unimpressive. San Jose State, they only won by 8 points last week. TJ Finley has looked subpar, to say the least. So Clifford, with his experience, should be able to get it done, I think, on the road. I'll pick Penn State.
All right. Good pick. Christian.
Yeah, Auburn has been really disappointing so far. I thought they were going to, at least like with line play and stuff like that, run over San Jose State. San Jose State had struggled the previous week terribly with whoever they were playing, and I think it was an FCS school even. So I thought that was going to happen again, and it didn't. So in a sense, it could be a good buy low spot on Auburn, but I'm honestly a Sean Clifford fan myself. Can I trust James Franklin is another question. Who knows? But I am going to ride with Penn State in this one.
All right. And Mike?
Same. I'm going Penn State.
All right. Taking the Lions.
I'm
going to take Penn State as well. I have a hard time always trusting Penn State just because they is as good as a team and a roster as that is. There's just always something that seems to let down a lot of situations, but then they'll blow a team out when I'm not expecting them to as well. Sean Clifford, week 1 concerned me with what I saw against who they play week 1. I remember watching the game. Come on now.
Who? Oh, it was Vandy, wasn't it?
No.
Purdue.
Oh,
Purdue.
come on. Purdue, yes.
Purdue.
At Purdue, which is it's hard to play at Purdue. Night game for starting the season.
Yeah,
Purdue's a tough place.
there.
That's right. Very good, Thomas. Very good. Did you? What year did Drew Brees? What year was Drew Brees a Heisman finalist?
99.
And where did he finish in the rankings?
That's mean.
Third, and was it 90? Was it 99 or no?
2000.
2000. Okay.
Yep. Interesting tidbit there.
I was 5.
I don't know how we got to Purdue football from this, but anyway, yeah, Purdue Penn State. Sean Clifford didn't look great that first game, but he looked a lot better last week. I feel like Clifford has a little bit of pressure on himself because he's on that cusp of being considered, I think, for an NFL, be able to be drafted, not be able to be drafted. Kind of some unknowns there. I think he's coming into his own. I mean, he's been there for what feels like he's been there way longer than the Jets have had any stability in quarterback. So, and that's an NFL team.
We drafted their last quarterback.
That's right, you did. So I definitely believe in Sean Clifford, so I think that's going to be a big part. And again, even though you're playing at an SEC team, I don't feel very good about this Auburn team. So I'm going to go with the Big Ten team here and take Penn State. Eric, another Big Ten guy. What do you think of the Nittany Lions here against the Tigers?
The Nifty Kitties, as I used to call them back in the day. Anyways, there's a name that we have to remember. I think this is going to be a name synonymous with Penn State football. It's a freshman running back, Nicholas Singleton. He is a beast. And I do believe they're going to utilize him not just from the run, but also from the pass. And so I think James Franklin is smart, is able to get his neurons firing up there and all of his offensive coordinators. I think they're going to be able to take on and beat Auburn. And I think it was last year. I believe they beat them in Happy Valley. I think it was 28-20. And so they're going to keep riding that. So I say Penn State, Nifty Kitties.
Nifty Kitties. All right, let's go on to the Miami Hurricanes traveling to College Station, Kyle Field, against Texas A&M. Does Texas A&M rebound and come back after that loss to Appalachian State, or do they continue to downfall here as Mario Cristobal's Miami Hurricanes keep on rolling? Thomas.
Now this is an interesting one because now I'll keep giving you the spread here. Obviously, this one is in Texas. Miami's coming in as a 5.5-point underdog. So the line hasn't been shaken up too much from the previous week results. And, obviously Miami hasn't been tested thus far. 2 easy games so far this year. We really don't know what to expect and what their ceiling is because they haven't been tested. So this is really their first game of note. You really can't take much out of those first 2 games as far as film. However, when in doubt, go with the quarterback battle. And obviously, Tyler Van Dyke is far and away the better quarterback coming into this game. Unless they make the change, which we haven't heard yet, unless Texas A&M makes the change, even then. But if they're going to roll out Haynes King again, this is probably going to be a low-scoring game, but I like Miami, mainly because of the quarterback matchup.
All right. Christian.
Yeah, I wish they could have NFL overtime rules and we could just get a tie, like a 7-7 tie or something like that. That being the case, this one's really tough, honestly.
You shouldn't talk about ties. I mean, I'm going to talk about his Jets, but that's definitely on his heart there.
I'm going to say that Jimbo doesn't want to be the next coach hitting the road like Scott Frost did this past week. So I think he does what it takes at least to get this team back on track, at least for 1 week, and at least going off this line at them with them 5.5-point favorites. I'll take them at home.
All right. And then Mike.
Yeah, I'm going with Texas A&M. I think that they were embarrassed and they need to come back and show them what they really are, and not that they don't lose to teams like App State, but they did. So, but now they got to prove themselves. So I think, like Christian just said, Jimbo doesn't want to be next on the firing line, and so he has to do what it takes.
Absolutely. Well, so I'm going to take Texas A&M as well. Now, I'm going to take Texas A&M not because I think they're necessarily the better team. I actually think Mario Cristobal in Miami has a real shot at actually being the ACC champs and going to the college playoff this year. I'm not banked on that, but I think they have a very strong shot at it. However, being that this game is at College Station, at Kyle Field, 9 p.m. kickoff time, Jimbo Fisher is going to have the Aggies riled up. I think that they are definitely taking this game much more seriously than they did the Appalachian State game. I think some of that was looking to the future for this game, and I think they're going to be dialed in. I do think it'll be close. I would probably take the under for that spread. to be field goal game or so. But I do think that Texas A&M and Jimbo is going to be enough just to outdo Mario Cristobal and the Miami Hurricanes. All right, Eric, give us your thoughts here.
Yeah, here's an interesting statistic for you all to just kind of games when it comes to Jimbo Fisher's career as a head coach. Has he lost 2 in a row? Anybody know?
Just at Texas A&M? Zippo.
Well, I'm just saying that he has not, as a coach, he has not lost 2 in a row when he was with Florida State.
Wow.
And so that's interesting to say. He's a baller, with headset on. And I think that he's going to get his guys really hungry. And so I just see them coming out. They have such an ability in defense. They have some really fast guys in the front line, in the defensive line. So I think if they put pressure on that new offense, Mario Cristobal just kind of threw at these guys, I think Texas A&M can win this one. Texas A&M, my pick.
All right. We're going to move on to then another. This is going to be an unranked matchup here for an SEC opponent. Mississippi State at LSU. Don't have a ton of say on this. I will just say I don't believe a ton in LSU and Brian Kelly this year, so that's something to consider. But Thomas, you go first. Thomas, you got yourself muted.
There we go. So this game is in Baton Rouge, right? So this game's in Baton Rouge. Home game. Brian Kelly. This is a they're an underdog at home. 2.5 point underdog at home. You can get them at plus money on the money line. This one will probably go over it. As far as there's going to be some points in this game. We know that Mississippi State can score. Opened up, put 49 points on Memphis. Will Rogers has 9 touchdowns already in 2 games. I just think at home, Jaden Daniels will get it done. Brian Kelly will make a statement. He's just been in the news too much, kind of like Eric was saying with Jimbo Fisher, that this guy, and obviously I picked Miami the last game, but I think just the proven pedigree. I've kind of been the Brian Kelly stan on this podcast, but give me LSU.
All right, Christian.
I don't feel great about it, though. I will say that.
Yeah, I don't feel great about it either, but I'm going to basically just echo along with Thomas. And I think I'm taking LSU very begrudgingly.
All right, Mike, who you got?
Yeah, same. I'm going LSU just because it's in Baton Rouge and them Cajuns are going to come raging. They want to win at home. And if they don't get that win, it's not going to be good for the coach. So I think he needs the win. I think the team needs the win. So I just think that overall, that's LSU at home. They're going to win.
All right, we're going to disagree a little bit here. So like I said last week, I do not think that locker room is on board currently with Brian Kelly at all. On the flip side, I don't like Mike Leach, but I like Mike Leach. And Mike Leach team loves Mike Leach. He's always good for a good soundbite. So I think Mike Leach has ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and actually take Mississippi State against LSU, even in Baton Rouge, on this one. Eric.
I've got to echo you, my friend, Kyle. Hey, that locker room is a mess. You have some guys that have, I mentioned this in the chat, but I believe NIL, for what it's worth, it could be good, bad, but I think it actually, for some of those guys in the locker room, that team dynamic, you're going to see a lot of parity in wins and losses. And I think, Kelly's way over his head. He's not at Grand Valley anymore, Central Michigan or Cincinnati. but I think he's trying to work that organic way, and it's not going to work. And again, Leach, I mean, that guy reads poetry nights before he gets ready to get his guys out, and he's talking about Emmanuel Conti. I mean, he when you look at Leach's career, he loves playing the underdog. He makes his guys think. Everybody out there thinks you're absolutely worthless, but guess what? There's one thing they don't have: your talent, your abilities. Play for Mississippi State. So yeah, right. Mississippi State's my pick.
Yeah, great pick. All right, let's finish out then with my number 11 Michigan State Spartans traveling to take on the Washington Huskies. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually get my pick out here first. I'm going to give Christian, I'm going to give you a little bit of information. You asked this question in our group text earlier today. Why is Washington a 3.5 point favorite? Well, I'm going to give you some insight on that and tell you why Washington is a 3.5 point favorite. Washington did not open as a 3.5 point favorite. Michigan State opened as a 3-point favorite on Sunday. So in the days that has flopped the other way. Now, I think that's a little bit of so many people were throwing money at this game that Vegas is turning the odds and trying to turn the table back onto giving it the +2 to giving the favorite to Washington. Now, that's part of it. If you look at this on paper, you would think that Michigan State is definitely the better team and should be able to be the team to go and win. And they might be. However, the reason I've said this all preseason to everybody, why this game has worried me from the beginning, before we even started, and from what I've seen so far this year, is a quarterback by the name of Michael Penix Jr., who played in Indiana, who torched Michigan State at Indiana, and so far is putting up insane numbers. Now, granted, not very great opponents in Kent State and Portland, but again, Michigan State hasn't had great opponents playing two MAC teams, and we share a MAC team opponent there within Kent State, or both played a MAC team in our offseason there. Michael Penix Jr., though, so far has 46 completions on 66 attempts, 682 yards. He has a QB rating of 183.5 currently. Also have a very, very good receiver in Jalen McMillan, who has 214 receiving yards, 9 receptions, 3 touchdowns on the season. What did I tell you all was my biggest concern coming into the season? What I need to see the most improvement out of? That secondary at Michigan State. O-line, one, yes. The O-line doesn't worry me in this game as much. That secondary does, especially being that we lost Snow and that we lost Henderson. That defensive front for run game is fantastic. Wyndham transfer in has been Big Ten Player of the Week, Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week 2 weeks in a row so far. Has put up great numbers, but that's been against lower opponents. I don't know that we're going to be able to get the kind of pressure on Penix that's going to be there. And without having that, again, depth in the secondary at the linebacker and the safeties, this just screams the possibility for Penix to be able to light up that scoreboard again. That is why, even though on paper you would see Washington as being the better team, Michigan State being the better team, on the eye test for what we have watched and with the stats, offensive stats, there's enough reason to be concerned as to why Washington would be that 3.5 point favorite currently. However, I had very similar feelings last year going into the Miami game. I did not feel good about that Miami game. Now, I do not think Washington is last year's Miami. I think they're a lot better team. I still have enough confidence in Tucker to have this game seriously enough. What's going to ride on is Peyton Thorne fix his terrible inaccuracy that he's had the first 2 weeks and going back to that first week of the season. As long as he does that, I think that we do enough to be able to make it done. And I'm going to choose to give my quarterback a little bit of faith here. And I am going to take my Spartans, knowing that this is me praying because I do not feel confident in this pick. But I'm going to go with it. And I'm still going to claim it as this is not me being fanish. This is me still picking with my head, with me understanding there's probably a little bit of bias that's playing into that. So, Thomas, that is my in-depth take on this pick. Information I gave you as a will.
No, I appreciate that. That is some good insight. And I'll give you a little bit of a confidence boost here because I'll stick with you here. I think Michigan State gets this done. Part of the reason, you can't trust the Pac-12, right? New coach. Again, like you mentioned, both teams haven't been tested, but Washington has not been tested yet. The only reason that anybody would pick Washington at this point is Penix Jr. And we think that he is the better quarterback. But what so far, like you said, what you've seen from Peyton Thorne has not been the same quarterback from last year. So he needs to right that ship here. I think he plays up to the competition, plays a little bit better, and this defense makes a stand. Michigan State.
I'll throw another stat at you real quick, another reason why I can be concerned. Now, this is a conference as a whole thing. Big Ten against SEC or against Pac-12 opponents at Pac-12 teams. I don't remember the exact stat, but it's in the last 20 years. There's only been one win at Pac-12 schools. It's hard to travel out to the Pac-12. That's another reason.
At least this isn't the late game. It's not like 10 p.m.
Not
start.
their time. It's 7:30.
Yes, 7:30. So it's only a 4. Yeah,
and it's not in Tempe. We don't got to play in 115-degree heat like we had to in 2018. So I'll take the 65-degree heat in Seattle. Christian.
Yeah. One reason I was massively on Michigan State the past 2 weeks, last year, and then I'll add in this year from the first 2 weeks. Mel Tucker and Michigan State are 6-0 against the spread non-conference. He does not. There's a chip on his shoulder and the team shoulder. Every game, there's not like a look ahead spot that you need to worry about or anything else like that, which is really impressive to see. That being the case, I will read you the lyrics to Bow Down to Washington, because that is who I'm going to be taking. So heaven help the foes of Washington.
Go
They're
right through
trembling
for
at the feet
MSU.
of mighty Washington. Our teams are there with bells. Their fighting blood excels. It's harder to push them over the line than past the Dardanelles. So victory is the cry of Washington. Our leather lungs together with a rah, rah,
Can I
rah.
mute you? All right, I get it. It's a fair take. Like I said, I was on the cusp. I don't blame you at all.
I think the fact that the line is at -3 right now says a lot, with Michigan State being the ranked team, and just where the public is all over Michigan State, but it's still going the other way. So that definitely plays into it as well.
College football is a game against matchups, and even though I'd say in a lot of ways Michigan State's the better team, those key matchups, that's what gives me pause, and that's why I name those things off. So, Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm going Michigan State just for you, Kyle.
Hey, thanks, buddy. I appreciate the.
That's all.
I appreciate
that's it. That's all I got.
Is that a sympathy?
Out of sympathy. Eric, who you got here?
This is a toss-up. I really am struggling with this game. I really am. Obviously, one of the things I've seen in Tuck's career is that he travels like no other coach I've seen travel. If you do know the inwards of him, it's a business trip for these guys. Early curfew, meditation session, whatever it is. Tuck's got it going on. I am concerned about Peyton Thorne. I really am. He's a little flustered. He has a great offensive line, which I think has helped him in many ways. But where I'm going to pick those guys from the Great Red Cedar there, Michigan State, is because Washington has two really big defensive players that are out. Alfulciano, I don't know if I said that right, who's a linebacker.
Sounds right.
And then safety Nunley. And these guys were dynamic last year, and they're both gone. And I think that's going to be a huge hole for Washington, the Huskies, to be able to fill. So I think Michigan State, with their great, offensive running backs, I think they're going to blow through those holes. The thing is that Michigan State cannot allow, let me just put this into context, cannot allow Washington to stay in this game. They've got to start strong. Their first two possessions, they need to make it happen. I don't mean through those two yellow poles. They got to put it in on the road. But I'm going victory for MSU. Just for you, Kyle.
I appreciate you, buddy.
All right. Let me get into college picks. I'll get them pulled up on my computer here. So BYU, Oregon. I want to pick BYU. They've been playing so slow. It's kind of tough. I'm going to go with Oregon. I think Oregon grabs a win, and I think BYU just has still that like slower offense. They're not able to push the ball, kind of like how they did this last week with Baylor. Baylor's not, in my mind, fantastic. I think Oregon grabs the win this week. Penn State, Auburn. I'm going to go Penn State. Miami, Texas A&M. I'm high on Miami this year. And I don't like picking Texas A&M to lose 2 games in a row, but I'm going to go Miami. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion. Same with this next one, Michigan State, Washington. I really like Penix. I'm going Washington. I'm sorry, Kyle. And then Mississippi State, LSU. Give me Leach. Going Mississippi State.
Hello, Illegal Contact podcast group. We have some really good and fun matchups this week for college football and NFL. My picks are going to be between the BYU and Oregon game. I really think BYU is going to pull this one out at Oregon. BYU's looked really good in their first few games. Went on the road and beat a good Baylor team. Oregon, as we know, really struggled against Georgia in week 1. How about Oregon first 3 weeks and they scheduled 2 top 15 teams. Now, granted, BYU was top 25. They hadn't cracked the top 15 yet, but BYU is showing to be a good team. I like BYU in this matchup. Penn State and Auburn. I feel like I don't know too much about this Auburn team, but just looking at their first 2 games, looks like they've struggled a little bit. And it also looks like they've struggled with turnovers offensively. So I like this Penn State team to go into Auburn on the road and win. So I'm picking Penn State. They had a quality win already this year, first week of the season against Purdue, at Purdue. So they've been a little bit battle tested early on. And so that's why I'm going with the Nittany Lions. I like Penn State in that matchup. Next matchup is very interesting. Miami and Texas A&M. And we all know, of course, Texas A&M came in with huge hype, started the season at number 6, and really laid an egg last week at home in College Station to App State, the Mountaineers. So, I fully expect Texas A&M to make a big turnaround this week, bounce back. I think that they overlooked App State for this game because I do think Miami is a solid ACC team this year, but I see Texas A&M handling business at home this go around. So I'm going with Texas A&M out of the SEC. And then next matchup is interesting as well, Michigan State and Washington. Honestly, Pac-12 has just not really shown too much so far this season. I know that last week Washington State did wind up beating Wisconsin at Wisconsin. So is that an indictment on Wisconsin, or is Washington State one of the few good Pac-12 teams? I guess time will tell there, but I like Michigan State in this matchup. I feel like defensively they've been very strong. They've had a few good showings in the first 2 weeks, and I like them to continue that trend. It may be a lower scoring game, but I like Michigan State to go on the road and win that one. And then lastly, we have Mississippi State and LSU. I know LSU, they dropped their game against Florida State. However, I know they had a walkover team last week, bounced back in a big way, but I think, Brian Kelly gets a lot of flack, and we can debate whether or not he's a good guy or whatever, but he can coach. I think that LSU is going to wind up winning that game, especially since it's in Baton Rouge. So I feel like LSU should win that game. So yeah, that's my picks this week. We'll see how things go. I know last week was a lot of fun, and there were some upsets, but overall, I think we're in for another great week of college football.
Let's throw one more bonus pick in here between just to give you a chance to be able to talk your Wolverines for a second, and man. Thomas to be able to talk his UConn Huskies. Pull up what is the spread here? We're just gonna have you guys, the two of you, pick against the spread for
minus 47.5.
Minus 47.5. That's almost as much as the spread was last week against Hawaii. I lost money, by the way, on your Wolverines. I picked them to cover, and then they couldn't do anything in the second half, and yeah, I lost like $5.
Now I have to be very fair. Christian, you're a wonderful UConn. Is that right, Christian?
Thomas
you're the UConn guy.
Thomas is.
I'm sorry, Christian. With all due apologies. The only question I have to ask you, Thomas, again, it's in no disrespect to your wonderful university there, University of Connecticut, UConn. Is Randy Etzel still the coach there? I guess Jim
Mora.
Oh,
you've heard that name.
So,
yeah,
I'm sorry. I forgot the two times that he was there. Not more, but anyways, no slight against you, but feel free to.
Oh man,
I'm sorry.
I have no defense. UConn football, when it comes, there's not much to say, but 47 points is a lot. 47, like you said, Kyle. 40. You saw that with 51 last week against Hawaii, and Hawaii ended up covering that. 47 points is a lot, and your offense really has to be clicking. Who's the starting quarterback? Who did they name? Is it JJ?
Oh, JJ.
Again?
It's JJ's.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. Give me UConn. Their defense is slightly improved from last year. They'll put up 10 points and keep them to 45.
Hey, I think that's really good, Thomas, actually. And I'm sorry that I brought up Randy Etzel, a fan favorite of many. But he's a good guy. But yeah, I think, again, Michigan continues to be dominant. I think they're going to try some different things with Psycho Harbaugh as their coach. What I've been really impressed with is Michigan's defense. With Aiden Hutchinson leaving and the guy, I can't pronounce his name right now, who I really love. I wish I could say his name. Everybody was wondering, can Michigan fill those holes? Well, you can't do it, but you can emulate it a little bit. And the Michigan defense has done a fantastic job. So I'm excited to see them continue to roll, and I think they'll roll through UConn.
I think they probably will roll through UConn too, and maybe in 5 weeks you'll finally see a real test for an opponent, and
I think so.
See how things go. Well, Eric, hey, it was great having you on. I appreciate you coming on and doing the picks here with us. So you do lead a podcast as well called CougarTalk in Michigan. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about the show and where our viewers can find it.
Absolutely. Well, CougarTalk was an inception a couple of years ago, and it kind of emulates my university that I used to attend, Spring Arbor University. It's a small NAIA school. But really, we just talk about different legends of the university. One that we talked to was, Coach Dean Lockwood, who's the assistant coach of the Michigan State University Spartans, and also coached with Pat Summit. So I tell you that that was a real treat to hear from him. And also Bethany Balser, one of our soccer players who plays with OL Reign and is in the kind of the mix for the national team. But, CougarTalk is not just about Spring Arbor athletics. It's really, honing in on some amazing stories of what people have done as athletes. Anyways, if you want to go check things out, you can go to our Twitter, which is CougarTalkSA, and you can hear more about that. So, yeah, thanks for plugging that in.
Absolutely. So I can find you there on major platforms as well, too?
Yeah, all Google and Apple and Switcher, Spotify. So, yeah, check us out, CougarTalkSA, to listen to some of these really cool podcasts and some of the things that are going on with some of these athletes. So, yep. 6,500 hits so far. So it's been a lot of fun just to kind of be able to hear and talk. And really, Kyle, if I can kind of end with this, some of the best opportunities when you interview is, I never was an athlete. I put on a jersey here and wearing a Michigan jersey. I never played. I played watching the TV like many of us did and cheering for athletes. But most of the podcast, 98% of it is them talking, former athletes and their experiences that they had. So it's been a real treat, and we're excited to maybe go about 7,000 hits here as we kind of retool the podcast and redo it starting in January with our season 3.
Awesome. Look forward to hearing it, and we'll definitely make sure to check it out. Eric, again, thanks for coming on. It was great having you tonight. We thanks for your insight and your picks, and hopefully we'll get you back again someday. Oddly enough, so CougarTalk being Spring Arbor University, 3 of us, me, Christian, and Thomas, our former boss is now the head of the online division for Spring Arbor University.
Fantastic.
And Luke Urbani. So, yeah, connections awesome. There of bringing the two together. Seven. Not even. This is 3 layers of a connection there. So
that's cool.
All right, great. Again, Eric, thanks for coming on, and hope to have you again. All right.
Absolutely. I look forward to connecting with you guys again. And hey, college football, let's savor this one, right?
That's right. Absolutely. All right. Thanks again, Eric.
Take care, guys.